We finally have a football schedule to play this fall for TCU and the rest of the Big 12. Plus, TCU has some staff openings. I wonder if, Melissa, maybe you or I should apply for either of them. On top of that, TCU Hoops is on a 3-game winning streak in conference play. We talk a little men's basketball, Mount Rushmore, and Frogball USA started practice a couple days ago. We're going to get into all of that and maybe a little bit more on this episode of Frogs Insider. Let's go. Welcome in to Frogs Insider. I am Jamie Plunkett alongside Melissa Triebwasser. As always, very excited to be back for another episode 51 of the show. Wow. Melissa, we've been cruising through these things.
I tell you.
And a little less than 10 months, 51 episodes isn't too shabby.
Feels just like yesterday, Jamie.
Well, it was just yesterday. No, I'm kidding. It's been a lot of yesterdays for the last 12 something years at this point, basically. But we are the Frogs Insider Podcast. We're part of the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Republic of Football Network. Thank you to DCTF for their partnership with us. Very thankful for them. Great business partners, great partners in general, wonderful football brand in the state of Texas that we love. Also, big shout out to Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods and Home Field Apparel, our lovely sponsors, for being a part of the show. Very thankful for both of them as well. We'll talk more about them later on in the episode. But Melissa, we got a lot of stuff to dive into. I was putting the run sheet together earlier today and was like, holy cow, we could go for like 2.5, 3 hour episodes. So I figured we just make this a super long one.
Yeah, I might take a nap in the middle if that's cool. But
sure.
I'm sure you can.
You're 2 hours behind me, but yeah, you can take the nap. You can take the nap.
Listen, I just came off of a week-long retreat with, 60 high school senior girls. It's going to take me 3 weeks to recover emotionally and physically, and I think that's fair.
Okay, yeah, you do deserve the nap. You do deserve that.
You also have children, though, too. So,
well, here's the thing. My wife took our oldest to a church retreat over the weekend and came back, and she immediately took a 3-hour nap. Yeah. So being with kids away from home is just different.
Yes, it is different.
Just more exhausting. It's the fact of the situation. But we're going to talk a little TCU schedule. We're going to talk about some open positions on the staff that are non-coaching positions that have opened up recently and what could happen with both of those. Plus, men's hoops, like I said in the intro, is absolutely firing on all cylinders right now. It has been quite the roller coaster through the first 8 conference games, and we're going to get into that a little bit. I posted a question on Twitter that I thought was really fun after I stole it from Parker in the group text, and he yelled at me about it, about who's on your Mount Rushmore for men's basketball. Got some really good answers and some really funny answers that we can talk about. And then, like I mentioned in the intro as well, baseball's underway. Practice got started. And I've been seeing some folks at the national level and one former TCU head baseball coach banging the drum for pitchers and catchers reporting early. That should be a rule. So maybe we can dive into that a little bit as well. But Melissa, let's start with football. 2024 football schedule came out this week. Finally. Yeah. It's been forever. Last conference, I think, to release their
the
schedules.
Anticipation was building with vigor.
That's definitely why they did it. That's definitely was the reason that they did that. But here is TCU schedule. I think it's pretty favorable for the Frogs.
Not a lot of complaints for me for the first time in a while.
First observations, really weird not seeing Texas or Oklahoma on there.
Yeah.
That's going to take some getting used to. Really cool seeing Utah back on there and having Arizona on there as a conference schedule. So let's go ahead and let's just knock out the month of September 1st, and then we'll kind of keep going. Well, really starting in August, because August 30th, that's a Friday night. TCU travels up to your neck of the woods, and they play the tree of Stanford, the singular tree of Stanford.
Just one.
We've been talking about this football game for quite a few years now because what was it? COVID year. There was supposed to be a game up there, and we were all making plans to come up and go to Cali.
My birthday. Yeah. Yes. A game on my birthday, all I've ever wanted, but not to be.
All it took was a global pandemic to shut that idea down.
ruined my party.
So TCU gets their season underway with the trip to face ACC powerhouse Stanford.
So weird. Never gonna feel right.
Big 12 ACC matchup, classic. And then they have a week. They play an FCS team. All right, so I'm going to just run through these really quick. At Stanford on August 30th, which is a Friday. Then they come home against Long Island University on September 7th. The following week on the 14th, they're home against UCF. Then they travel to SMU on September 21st, and then to Kansas on September 28th. That's the first 5 games of the season right there.
And that game at Kansas will be held at Arrowhead Stadium, which is unbelievably cool.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah, we'll dive into that. I'm
sure. I want to start.
But...
I want to get there in a second. I want to talk about this non-conference schedule first.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, we've talked about it a couple times on the show previously when people were asking, why did TCU cancel the series with SMU moving forward, or just say we're not rescheduling any more games moving forward? It's for situations like this. There should never be an instance where TCU is playing 2 road non-conference games in the same season. It should never happen. And the way SMU wants the schedule to go is to alternate home and home. Well, it's a pretty big challenge to always find a P5 or really a P4 opponent that can come to Fort Worth every single season. So you'd rather schedule your home and home games with quality opponents. Mm-hmm. Sorry, SMU. Yes. And then find another team that's willing to maybe come do a one-off or a 2-for-1 in Fort Worth, right? So we see Arkansas State on the schedule a couple of years from now. I've been banging the drum for Tulane to maybe get one of those 2-for-1s. But this is a situation where TCU fans will only get one non-conference game at home, and it's Long Island University.
Yeah.
And that should never be a situation that we see moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to play 11 of your 12 regular season games against now Power 4 opponents, like you said, it is a disservice for one of those games to be on the road, even if on the road is just 30 miles or whatever it is. And, I think obviously there's still a lot of questions about what the future of college football looks like when it comes to realignment and how this might all shake out down the line. So in hindsight, I think it, like, as much as I will to a degree miss this series, it was a really heady play by Donati, even just a couple of years probably before we really knew how big of an impact that series would have on TCU's schedule, to go ahead and kind of pause that contract for the time being, because it hurts season tickets. It makes your schedule a little bit tougher, but there's very, very little reward. I mean, who knows how good SMU will or won't be this year, but I think we all expect them to the day-to-day grind of playing in a Power 4 conference, when they couldn't handle Boston College, is going to have them struggling in year 1 at least. So there's not any perceived plus to playing at SMU in 2024.
No, and especially moving forward, because you're going to still have the unbalanced conference schedule in the Big 12, where you're going to either have 5 home games or 4 home games in a given year in conference. And especially in those years where you only have 4 conference home games, you're going to need to have at least 2, if not all 3 of your non-conference games at home to make it worthwhile to your season ticket holders. And that's the biggest challenge here. Is TCU got lucky that in 2024, they have 5 Big 12 home games, because they have Central Florida, they have Houston, they have Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, and Arizona all coming to Fort Worth. But if that hadn't been the case, then you're talking about a 5 home game season ticket package, which is almost unsellable at the cost that you are asking people to pay, especially the club seat folks and the suite folks and everybody else who truly fund the majority of things at TCU, asking them to pay a pretty penny for only 5 football games, one of which would be Long Island, is
which is
a hard sell.
Yeah, not going to be a good game. But hey, we opened the road for a game that we mentioned at the top here. I've been incredibly excited 4. Stanford, like everybody's going to want to crap on Stanford. They were not very good last year, but I think what we saw out of that team in the first year under Troy Taylor, who was jumping up from the FCS ranks at Sacramento State, he built a tough team that's going to compete. They were short on talent. I think they'll be a lot more talented this year. He's really fighting to be able to get more portal players in. It's not like they had a massive haul, but I think it's some crucial spots. They were able to address it. I don't expect Stanford to be too much competition, hopefully, for TCU, but I'm gonna go ahead and but who knows? Yeah, we were 5-7. What do we have to say? But I do want to just take a moment and spend some time on the California Board of Tourism Affairs and tell everybody, listen. I am struggling here because I am looking at this schedule and I don't want to jump ahead too much. And I'm saying, well, I'm absolutely going to the Stanford game, obviously, right? Like I've got, and look, I just want to tell people, hey, tickets, I got you. I'm not paying for them, but if you want to sit with groups, I got.
No, you heard it here first.
I got a
Melissa
guy.
Treebwasser buying your tickets to the TCU Stanford game.
But please hit me up if you want to know where to sit. I got a guy. If you're planning, the great thing about this being, I know it sucks on a Friday night on the West Coast. It's an extra day off of work. I get that, but I'm telling you, it frees you up for an entire 3-day weekend to go wine tasting. Please hit me up on Twitter at @thecoachmelissa. I have strong opinions on Napa and the wineries and the restaurants you need to eat. Like legitimately, like I get offended when people don't ask me for help on this kind of stuff. So please hit me up. I would love to be your NorCal tour guide. You want to hit the Redwoods, you want to see the Winchester Mystery House, you want to go to Half Moon Bay. Like I am here for my TCU Frog fam to be your unofficial tourism guide for the state of California. That is going to be an unbelievable atmosphere. Stanford students aren't going to be there yet, so they're not going to be rocking that joint, but that stadium is absolutely picturesque. We'll be there. It's sunset. Cannot recommend going to that game enough for TCU fans looking to travel. It's tough because I'm also looking at this and saying, well, I'm absolutely going to the Utah game because that's an easy one for me to go to. And there's no way I am missing TCU playing at Arrowhead. So like, where am I going to a home game this year? I don't know. It's probably going to happen, but if
I already mentioned it. I already mentioned it. Long Island's coming to town.
Long Island is coming to town. Cannot miss.
Premier matchup right there.
Yeah, cannot miss.
Go Sharks.
We know it'll probably be a night game at least on ESPN Plus, but that's fine.
That'll be great.
At least we know that.
That'll be great.
So, yeah,
it'll probably be one of those games that Mark Followable gets to call, which I love him as a play-by-play broadcaster. If you don't know and you're listening to this, he's the Dallas Mavericks play-by-play guy.
It's great.
And he's awesome. Doesn't matter the sport. He's so good at it.
So it's one of those, but I say like looking at that schedule, like even with the 3 road games there, I fully expect Kansas to be a legit contender. I don't know that we ever like followed up on this, but I did take the over and I did say Kansas would be good this year. I believed in them. And I stuck by my guns even when Jalen Daniels got hurt. They bring a lot. They lose a lot, but they bring a lot back too. I think they're going to be good. But this schedule sets up, the first month of the schedule sets up really well for TCU to be in a good spot. We said this a year ago, did not work out, but potentially you could have a solid start, a 3-1. You would hope a 4-0 start. I think anything less than 4-0 would be a tough pill for TCU fans to swallow, especially if that L comes at the hands of at SMU. I think that would be a little bit of a challenge. But there's certainly some opportunity to, playing at a Power 5 team is never an easy way to open the season. But again, Stanford's environment is not known for being raucous and overly tough to play in for opposing teams, especially in August before the students are back. So I think it's a nice opening to the season, all things considered, and getting UCF early, I think, is going to be much better than getting them late as they look to replace some key talent as well.
For sure. And I think that this is a really fun start to the schedule. I just wish that there was more home game consistency because you look at this and it's really, it's split, right? So you have 3 home games in the first half of the season and 3 home games in the back half of the season. But with bye weeks included, you're talking about only having 3 home games halfway through October, right? I mean, you're on the road. You've got 4 road games in a bye week, and your 4th home game comes October 26th against Texas Tech. That's not a lot of home games happening early on this schedule when you've only got 6 to play with anyways. It feels like even fewer. I'm very excited. So we've already kind of talked about it a little bit, but the last game in September 28th at Kansas, will be at a very popular football stadium where we've all seen Taylor Swift sitting in the suites.
Yeah, do you think she's coming for this one?
Maybe she and Travis will both be there cheering on, obviously, the Horned Frogs, because you know who got a shout out on Travis and Jason Kelsey's episode of New Heights this week? That would be TCU.
I didn't even hear it
because Travis was talking about summer workouts with some of the guys around the NFL that he really, really liked, including a guy named Zay Flowers, who may or may not have fumbled in their game on Sunday. Sorry to my one Baltimore Ravens friend who's probably listening to this and raging right now. But he said, I worked out with Patrick and Zay and a bunch of other guys at TCU over the summer. And I just thought that was really cool for him to shout out TCU, because pro athletes like to. Taylor Swift's boyfriend likes to work out at TCU.
I do love that Patrick Mahomes works out at TCU when he's in Texas. I do love that. And I know there's a lot of other reasons why, but I do love that. But yeah, I think that Arrowhead game is killer. That's a sick thing to get to watch your team do. Playing in a pro stadium is a cool experience, and playing in a pro stadium that's serving as a collegiate home game, I think is going to be really fun. So that, and it's at a time of year where it's reasonable to not be miserable. What we're hoping for now, and it's a while before we'll know this, but what we're hoping for now is maybe the Chiefs play a Sunday afternoon game on Sunday. I doubt that'll happen, but that would be a
nice
cool
little doubleheader.
It would be a
nice. Can I just say one thing real quick?
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes works out at TCU for the same reason that tech grads moved to DFW.
Ooh, you are right.
Lubbock sucks.
Yeah, there you go.
It's hard to get to. It's windy. It sucks. So there's that. Moving on to the month of October, though, in this schedule for TCU, you have Houston, which is flexed in the first weekend of October, either the 4th on a Friday or the 5th on a Saturday. That is at TCU. Then you travel to Salt Lake City after the first of 2 bye weeks. So October 12th is a bye week, and then the Frogs travel to Salt Lake City to play Utah on October 19th. They come home the following weekend on the 26th to play Texas Tech. And that's your month of October right there. 2 home games, 3 conference opponents. I feel really good about the fact that TCU goes to Utah following a bye week.
Yes.
I don't know about you.
I think that's huge.
But I think that's incredibly favorable for TCU to have 2 weeks to get ready for a Utah team that just their MO under Kyle Whittingham has always been grind you into a fine powder. And so having 2 weeks to get ready for that, I think, is really, really great.
Yeah, and going before weather is probably an issue as well.
True.
Is also very helpful.
Incredibly true. And then you get to have a battle for the saddle, take the saddle back game against Texas Tech the following week. And then you get into the month of November. You travel to Waco on November 2nd to take on Baylor in one of the few protected rivalries TCU and Baylor will play every single year. And then you come home for a game against Oklahoma State, the Fightin' Mike Gundy's, featured in the Big 12 championship just a year ago, with a quarterback who I think is going to be like 25.
Are you sure he's not 35?
He might be. He might be Jordy Sandy's age. Anyways, the Pokes come to town on November 9th. Then the second bye week of the year, because of the way that the calendar rolls out, every team gets 2 bye weeks. TCU's second comes on November 15th. Before they get ready for Arizona to come to town. So this, look, I said it was a favorable schedule for a lot of reasons. The fact that you have bye weeks before Utah and Arizona, which in my mind are probably the 2 hardest games on the schedule next year. Or at least I would have said that about Arizona before the coaching change.
Yeah. I mean, they held on to some pretty critical pieces on their roster. So
they kept their quarterback, right? They kept the quarterback. You can figure everything else out. But they kept Fafita. That's all you really need.
Oh, God.
That was good.
Okay.
That was good.
It's been a great episode of the Frogs Insider Podcast.
We're only 19 minutes in. I got so much more planned. This is what happens when Jamie makes the run sheet. Jamie makes punts.
I need to step back in. Yeah, I need to stay back in. Just step back in.
Yes, but the Frogs wrap up their schedule November 23rd. Arizona comes to town for the final home game of the year. That will be Senior Day, and then they travel to Cincinnati the next week on November 30th. That one could be cold. That
Yeah.
one could be a pretty windy, nasty weather game at Cincinnati on November 30th.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree. I think the bye before Utah, the bye before Arizona, those are critical. Having 2 bye weeks. I mean, for TCU, it feels like up until I think it was 2022, right, or 2023, yeah, 2022, that we felt like we had a bye week in the first month of the season, pretty much annually as a member of the Big 12. To have two and to have them spread out at critical times, I think is really really great. That stretch to me of at Utah, Texas Tech at home, at Baylor, Oklahoma State is a really tough stretch of games. Oklahoma State, obviously they lost some pieces as well, but they bring back kind of the heart and soul of their offense. That's a team that, as you mentioned, played for a Big 12 championship just last season. They're going to be considered probably one of the top teams in the league going into the season. Texas Tech is very unpredictable, but they've certainly been collecting talent. And so you'd expect that they might be a little deeper and stronger this year. And they beat TCU in Lubbock a year ago. Baylor's terrible, but it's still a rivalry game on the road. And even we've seen how when these teams are not matched in talent, we still see a lot of those close games. So to me, that's kind of the 4 game stretch, especially where it hits in the schedule, that's going to make or break this season. If you can get to that first bye week, maybe you're, what is that, 6 games, 7, maybe you're 5-1, maybe you're 4-2, you hope worst case scenario, to where you're still kind of in the mix for things. I think that's super super critical. Get a bye week, regain your composure, and then go out and beat, like, I hope people aren't overlooking Utah. I know they didn't have a season to their standard last year, but they get their quarterback back, Cam Rising. I mean, they were literally starting a pig farmer at quarterback for a good chunk of the season. So
And he beat USC.
and he beat USC. So I think Utah, if they're not the prohibitive favorite, I'll be shocked in the preseason rankings. I think they're going to be very, very good. And so that's kind of where we're going to probably find out, is this TCU team legitimately a contender, or are we looking at, it's kind of where we were at that time a year ago, as far as what our hopes for the future of the season are. So, but overall, I have very few complaints. I think all things considered, this lays out it gives TCU a really good opportunity for success. They do a lot more travel than maybe we've seen them do in the past. They leave the state quite a bit more. But you get to play some good rivalry games. You get to play, your marquee opponents in Utah and potentially Arizona, and you get those bye weeks at really fortuitous times.
You really do. I think this is a wonderful schedule for TCU. Looking forward to seeing how the Frogs respond to a down year in 2023. I think that a couple of things that I really enjoy besides the bye weeks, the fact that you don't have back-to-back road games where you travel out of state, right? So
Yeah.
you talked about the fact that there are a lot of out-of-state games. There are 4 road games out of state this year. None of those come in back-to-back weeks, which is really nice. And the only back-to-back road games that you have on the schedule, one is at SMU. So at least you're still in DFW.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think that that's really nice. I like that you get, like you said, Central Florida really early before they can maybe gain some steam. And I think you made a great point about that 4-game stretch from October to early November being a really key point in the season. But I think this is as favorable as the schedule as TCU's ever had in the Big 12, notwithstanding the fact that Texas and Oklahoma aren't on it, even though Texas had a losing record against the Horned Frogs in the Big 12. But I think this is a fun schedule. This is a schedule where I think, if I was looking at this as a third party person, I'd say, oh, there are a lot of games I would like to just sit down and watch. And I think you're going to say that about a lot of Big 12 games this year.
Yeah.
Like, I want to watch that football game because I'm interested in seeing who wins that game, because I'm interested in both teams. So I think that's one thing that the Big 12 definitely has going for it in 2024 across the board with some of these really, really cool matchups.
Yeah. You miss the marquee, the flagship, the blue, whatever. But like you said, these are interesting, fun football games. You're going to see, much like we're seeing in basketball, a lot of competitive close games into the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lot of I mean, there's so many just really fun players in this league next year. The entertainment value, I think, is going to be off the charts, and I think people will find a reason to tune in and pay attention to what the Big 12 is doing. And TCU, I think, will carry a lot of that, kind of be the flag bearer in a lot of ways for that.
Yep, absolutely. Let's kind of move on to the next thing that we're talking about tonight. Two staffers have departed from TCU football. Neither of them are on the field coaching positions, but they're both pretty important. General manager of the team, you could call him a bunch of different things, but I think at SMU, he was Sonny Dykes' chief of staff. At TCU, he was the general manager. Anthony Crispino, a guy who's been considered Sonny Dykes' right-hand guy since he started at SMU, is leaving to take a similar role at Nebraska under Matt Rule. This is something I had a chance to catch up with Anthony about a week ago, right after the news broke, and there's no ill will or anything towards TCU. This was just an opportunity that he felt he couldn't pass up on. He's from the Midwest, so I think he's closer to family up there. Really good situation for a guy who is growing a family, which is awesome for him. So super excited for Anthony to get back up closer to home and be in Nebraska. And this is an opportunity, I think, internally for some guys who are currently on staff under Sonny to take on some more responsibility. At least that's what I've kind of been told is the plan. Is I don't think they're going to make an outside hire to fill this role. They've got some folks in mind to take on this work. So those things should come about in the next weeks, month or so, as Dykes kind of formalizes some of that. And then the next one just came down on Wednesday. Is the director of recruiting, Aaron Hodges, has left to take on the director of player personnel role at Alabama, or maybe it's an assistant director of player personnel. Something in the player personnel realm, though. But he's headed to Bama, which is pretty cool. This is also not an unexpected move. TCU was looking to shuffle some things. They had conversations with several guys, but this was one of those positions where Aaron, I think, was pretty open with Sonny and the rest of the staff, and made his move to Alabama. So there's a director of recruiting position now open as well. This is different from a couple of the other recruiting positions that we see with folks who are responsible for, getting things organized when recruits come to campus. So this is more of an eval position. So TCU is looking to fill that now as well. He was also a defensive analyst. He worked with the secondary while he was here. Hodges did. So 2 losses to TCU staff after a year, where there were some other staff shuffles already. So, just kind of add them to the list, I guess, of things that Sonny Dykes is looking to find a new way forward with both of these roles.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you always expect staff changes, after an uber successful season in 2022. We saw some of those. And then you also expect staff changes after a subpar season. And of course, the ripple effect of some of the coaching movement that we've seen, starting with Nick Saban's retirement, is still being felt with staffs across the country. And it's really only expected that TCU would ultimately kind of have to take one of those hits as well. I think that hearing from the same voices can get stale and stagnant, and it's good for coaches to move on and get new perspectives, and it's good for players and programs to bring in new voices too. And when you're looking at kind of, it sounds like Sonny Dykes all offseason has been saying, not just we're going to make tweaks and try to get back to what was working in 2022, but we want to overhaul and be looking forward. And so I think that the opportunity to do some promoting from within is a positive in this, but also to bring in some fresh voices and perspectives alongside your new defensive coordinator and some of your new linebackers coach. Different things like that could be a positive thing. Look, we've kind of talked about it quite a bit on the podcast, is that Sonny Dykes' seat is not hot going into 2024, but he cannot either have another 5-7 season and people be okay with that, or not look like he's ready for what's next, right? And I think that these coaches at these mid-tier programs in the Big 12 is not the SEC or Big Ten. They're not positioned as such for the future, that everybody is looking not just at the here and now, but how do we best present ourselves for the next iteration of realignment or the next iteration of what college football is. And so it's super important to continuously be moving forward. You wish guys nothing but the best, as they also are looking to put themselves in the best position for their future. So I think that this can certainly be a positive, but it's obviously a big loss for TCU. I mean, Aaron Hodges was an exceptional recruiter, and Crispino, I don't know that anybody knows Sonny Dykes better than maybe even Sonny Dykes knows himself after the last 5-6 years that those two have been together. So it's a loss, but it doesn't have to be a negative whatsoever. I think it can be a positive for all parties involved.
Yeah, I think you said the right word earlier. It's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity for Dykes to show that he is aware and attentive and willing to do what it takes to move forward, whether that's losing a staffer by a hire somewhere else or by going and kind of forcing a change like he did on his coaching staff. So like you said, you nailed it. I'm not going to repeat it. We're already 30 minutes into this show. We're going to keep on moving, which means
forward, right?
that I'm going to do this brilliant Hell's Half Acre read right now for our wonderful sponsors over at Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods. Hell's Half Acre is a brand that was created with Horned Frog fans in mind, and each item sold makes a direct impact on TCU student athletes. You can go check out all of their TCU gear, from polos and shirts to headwear and home goods, over at hellshalfacresg.com. They've got football polos, they've got baseball polos, they've got some of the best hats on the market. Everything that you can get from Hell's Half Acre will get you ready for game day. It's the place to go to grab all of the stuff you need. So head over to hellshalfacresg.com. And when you make a purchase, you'll get a little comment box down at the bottom as you're filling that out. Just go ahead and tell them that the folks over at Frogs Insider sent you there. Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods rocks. I wear their the new Horned Frog Spit Blood polo at least once a week to work, and I can get away with that because I always wear pullovers and stuff. But then I'll take the pullover off, and it was, hey, you wore that shirt last week. Yeah, I only have a limited number of shirts, but also this is a really great one, and everyone should go get it.
Yeah, agreed.
Nailed it. Nailed that ad read. Let's go.
Well, you nailed that ad read. You know who else has been? Oh, I don't want to say that.
Don't say it. Don't say it like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop. You know who else has been playing with exceptional quality? Got nothing.
Nailed it.
I guess that's not my right side. Yeah, nailed it. Nailing things. We weren't gonna go there. Man, Jamie, I tell you, TCU basketball is giving me a hope.
Feelings
that I don't want to have for a TCU basketball team.
Why?
This team is so just inches and a whistle and a free throw away, truly, from being undefeated in Big 12 play.
It's true.
I mean, the total margin of loss here over the course of their losses is what, like 6 or 8 points in 3 losses.
They lost their 3 losses. They lost to Kansas by 2, Iowa State by 1, and Cincinnati by 4 in overtime. So 7 total points.
7 total points away from being undefeated. And honestly, I'm glad that they're not. I don't need that kind of pressure in my life. I don't want to have to think about when the loss is coming. But again, this league, I don't care who you're playing. It's going to come down to the last 4 minutes of a game. TCU is going to miss free throws with abandon for 3 of those 4 minutes and then make all the ones that matter, as they did against Texas Tech. I was sitting there in sophomore family mass with it on. Don't tell my boss. Don't tell my boss. I was sitting there in the back of mass taking photos, doing my job with the game streaming on my phone. And I was just sitting there thank God I was in a holy place. I was able to
prayer works, right?
Yeah, whatever it took. But man, it is so fun to see these transfers getting up to speed. I fell in love with Trey Tennyson way back in September. You told me I was going to love him. You were right. I'm all in with this man. I will follow him into the depths of the sea. I don't care. He's amazing. Jameer Nelson has really turned the corner after a little bit of a rough stretch. But it's the guys that you needed to be great that are consistently being great. It's Micah Peavy doing it on both ends of the floor. What he did from the 3-point line against Texas Tech was unbelievable. It's in my
career high for him.
Career high, yeah. It's Emmanuel Miller being the dude. right? Like just being the guy. Like his stats aren't blowing anybody off the page because he's doing everything. He's just quietly putting together these very consistent, very impactful nights on both ends of the floor. He is just such the glue of this team. But the way that these guys play together, the depth of being able to go 10 guys deep and find and mix and match based on opponent and situationally for Jamie Dixon, the fact that he trusts these 10 guys and these 10 guys keep like kind of stepping up into that role, seeing Xavier Court come in and give critical minutes, seeing Jacoby Coles look like Jacoby Coles again. They play with just such a heart and such an energy and such a fluidity. It is beautiful basketball. There's moments in the half court, sure, but man, this is a team that can literally play with anybody. They're gonna drop some stinkers. I mean, that Iowa State game was just abhorrent, and they still only lost by one. But they certainly have the pieces to make a run or the ability to go out in the first round. I mean, that's
Yeah.
where we're at with this team, right? Like, but it is really, really easy to want to root for this team to be successful.
One of the things that I think Jamie Dixon has done a really good job of with this squad that I don't think has had to battle with previous iterations of the team is convincing 10 guys every single night that the minutes they get are good.
Yeah.
Right. And he said it a couple times throughout the year. He said it a lot in fall camp as guys were still kind of vying for starting roles and figuring out how they were going to fit into everything. He's basically said, there are guys that want more minutes. Probably there are guys that are going to want to start that probably aren't going to start, but everyone right now understands the goal. Everyone right now understands that they're a 10 deep basketball team legitimately. And that the harder they play, the better that they do at certain things, the more minutes they're probably going to get. And with Jamie Dixon, you always know, where you stand as a player, which I think is really, really a quality characteristic to have as a head coach. And Jamie Dixon has it in droves. You always know where you stand with him. But he's also incredibly clear about what he wants from you as far as, hey, he said it so much, the best 5 defenders will play. That has been what he has said all year. And if you look from the beginning of the year to now, how Trey Tennyson has improved. Like, he's been a shooter. The guy's been a shooter for years. He was not a good defender when he got on campus, and that was limiting his minutes early on. That's why he wasn't starting. And then when he started playing competent defense, not elite defense, not great defense, when he started playing
terrible
competent defense in a system that needs you to play competent defense, the minutes skyrocketed. He got a starting gig, and now he's dropping 23 on Texas Tech, banking in a 3 in the eyes of Pop Isaacs late in the game to help seal it, right? Every player on this roster right now has a firm understanding of what Jamie Dixon wants from them, what they need to improve on, and they all have an understanding of the minutes will come.
Yeah.
One way or another, the minutes will come. Jameer Nelson was asked when he got sent to the bench in favor of Avery Anderson in the starting lineup probably 3 weeks ago now, how has that impacted your approach to the game? And he said, my minutes are the same, was his response. He said, I'm playing the same number of minutes. And that's really, he's like, but I can't control any of it. I just keep working hard. And so these guys even understand that there's not necessarily value in going and asking for more minutes, going and asking to be a starter, going and asking. Jamie Dixon has laid it out for you. Do X, Y, and Z, the minutes will come. And that's such a rare thing I'm going to sound like an old man. It's a rare thing in this sport right now, in basketball in general, which has become a very individual-centric sport. And it's very easy for it to become that. With the way that certain professionals play the game. And I, as a Mavericks fan, am including Luka Doncic in that. It's also very easy from an NIL perspective to say, hey, I get paid X. I want my minutes, right? You're paying me. Why aren't you playing me? And it's even easier to say, you're not playing me. I'm going somewhere else because I can transfer how many times I want. And none of those guys have bought into any of those bear traps at this point. They've not tripped over any of those obstacles. They've all said, we're here, we're committed, we're going to do the thing. And you're starting to see what kind of product that can put on the court.
Oh, what a great example for those two freshmen that are redshirting right now too. Two guys that are going to be, I mean, it's going to be necessary that they step up into big roles, and they're watching a team of guys who, I know there was kind of a nice, it was going around Twitter on Trey Tennyson and his journey and how he kind of battled to get to this point, how much it means to him. Like, these guys that transferred from lower division programs wanted to come and play for championships. And TCU, as weird as it is to say, as the calendar turns to February, is right in the mix for a regular season Big 12 championship. Tons of basketball left to play. It's not going to be an easy road. They're going to drop some more games, but everything is so compacted that one team getting hot at the right time can certainly put themselves in that number one spot and stay. And TCU is as capable as anybody. I mean, we've seen TCU's already beat Houston. Kansas is struggling. We've seen that everybody has a weak spot. So it's kind of like at this point, like, why not TCU winning the Big 12? And it's because these guys have bought in, like you said, that they understand what they have to do. The communication from the top down is absolutely just super, super well-oiled machine at this point. They know the expectation. They know what they have to do to get there, and they're buying into those roles, even as they change on a game-to-game basis sometimes, which is a massive testament to Jamie Dixon and that coaching staff, and to the character of guys like Emmanuel Miller and Micah Peavy as real leaders on this team. So I'm super excited about the next couple of weeks to see the regular. Of course, my dog just went and found the loudest toy that he has. That is Bauer. It's raining. We are in a atmospheric river once again in Sacramento, so no walk tonight. So this is the thing. So all that to say,
classic
Sky River, atmospheric river. Yeah. So I'm super, super excited. We do need to talk about one thing though, as we heap praise upon this team. And
yes,
listen, I've been a basketball coach for a really, really long time. As a coach, there's only so much you can do to get your team better at free throws. It's not like they're not working on them in practice. It's not like they haven't done all the mental stuff. I have no idea why this team just cannot finish at the free throw line until the absolute most desperate moments. But man, Jamie, it's going to cost us a game or two here. It already cost one. I mean, the Cincinnati game really came down to missed free throws at the end. And the Texas Tech game almost turned around because there was a critical stretch where they, nobody could hit 2 or 2 from the line.
Yeah, I go back and forth in my own head about this, because on the one hand, they're shooting free throws at the best clip of any team under Jamie Dixon since he's been at TCU, which is just shy of 73%.
Yeah.
Another note at the collegiate level, how many teams right now, Melissa, do you think are shooting better than 79% from the free throw line?
Since you're asking me, I'm going to guess the number is very low.
Give me a guess.
15?
5.
Oh.
There are 5 teams in the country that are shooting free throws at a 79% clip or better, and only 2 of those are above 80. And they're like right at 80. TCU is, I think, and this isn't a good number, they're like 140th in the country in free throw percentage out of the 350 college basketball teams, which means they are an above average free throw shooting team this year. None of that feels good when Emmanuel Miller misses 2 free throws with 42 seconds left and the Frogs are only up 6. And then Texas Tech comes down and hits a 3 to make it a 1-possession game. That doesn't make you feel good in that moment. But the reality of the situation, based on the data that we have, says TCU is actually an okay free throw shooting team in the context of college basketball. And you're going to have nights where Ernest Udeh misses a free throw with 2 seconds left that would have won the game at Cincinnati. You're also going to have nights like Tuesday night where they made 6 free throws in the last 27 seconds to ice the game and put it away. You're going to have nights like Baylor where nobody could go 2 for 2, but they went 1 for 1 just enough to extend that game to a second overtime before they finally put it away in 3 overtimes, with Jameer Nelson hitting 2 free throws late, right? And so we think, oh my gosh, what's the storyline going to be? What's the storyline going to be? That Baylor game was so fun to watch on the board because guys, people on the board didn't. Basketball is such an easy sport to get sucked into in the moment
Yeah.
where, oh my gosh, we're down 10 in the second half. This game is toast. We're screwed. This team sucks. It's all over. Oh my gosh, they just went on a 21-3 run. They're winning by 7 now. They were down, but now they're up. And oh my gosh, this team's unstoppable. They're going to win the freaking championship. We're going Phoenix. Oh my gosh, we missed 2 free throws with 40 seconds left. We're screwed. We're the worst team. Why don't we ever practice fundamentals? What is Coach Jamie Dixon doing? He's terrible. He should be fired. Jacoby Coles ices the game with 4 free throws in under 14 seconds. He's the greatest player of all time. He needs to be starting again. This is incredible basketball. I love this team. Right? Like the emotional roller coaster of basketball is so much different than any other sport because of how quickly everything can happen. And I think if we pull back and do the 10,000 foot view, this basketball team that we get to watch right now in Fort Worth has minimal flaws. Free throw shooting is one of them. And it could, like you said, cost them some games here in the future. It might. But they're also going to win games because they're the best fast break team in the country.
Yeah.
They're going to win games because they're one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country. They're going to win games because they have one of the best 3-point shooters in the country. Right? So you give and you get, and it's not going to always be the perfect basketball team. And Jamie Dixon loves to remind me of this when I ask him questions in midweek press conferences, because I tend to ask him about the things that TCU isn't good at. For instance, a couple weeks ago, when TCU was really struggling in the half court, I asked him, hey, Jamie, how are you feeling about where the half court offense is right now? I know it's something that you've said you wanted to see improvement in. And he goes, well, I see you're not asking about our fast break offense, which is the best in the country. But then he gave me a really good answer about what they're looking for specifically in the half court. And he also mentioned in that moment, basketball teams can't be good at everything.
Yeah.
There are the rare instances where they can be, right? Like Warriors Dynasty. Those guys are getting paid a little bit more than TCU's guys. But I think that at this juncture, with where TCU basketball is, this is just fun basketball to watch, and it's good basketball to watch. That Baylor game in Waco, that was one of the most fun basketball games I've seen live at any level this year. It was so fun. The strategy that Scott Drew and Jamie Dixon were employing, especially in overtime with out of bounds plays, what they were calling in half court, it was just incredible basketball. And I love that we get to watch that at TCU these days.
Yeah.
Because of what Coach Dixon has done.
I think you're right. I think you do have to kind of pull back and take that 30,000 foot holistic view at some points. I think the hard thing for fans, casual fans, is, the numbers overall are really, really good in a lot of areas, but it's like you said, it's easy to get sucked up in the minutia. And the problem is this conference is so good. You aren't going to have a 10-point lead with 2 minutes to play very often in this league, at home or on the road. And so momentum is so real, I think, in basketball in a way that isn't a lot of sports. And so it's not necessarily how many free throws you're missing. It feels like when, and, it does seem like in some of these close games, there have been a disproportionate amount of misses at critical times for TCU compared to their overall average. But like you said, you can't do everything right all of the time. This team is playing so well in so many areas. They're putting themselves in position to be leading and to be in close games against good teams, both at home and on the road. They've won more than they've lost. They've got a tough schedule the rest of the way, but there's a lot of opportunity to continue to rack up wins. Right now, as long as they continue to play at the level that they are playing, this is a tournament team and a team that could get the type of draw that could propel them into the second weekend for the first time in school history. I think that's kind of what we need to look at. You've got 3 wins in a row. You've got a tough one on Saturday against a Texas team that is capable of looking like a true contender in the conference and also like one of the worst teams in the conference on any given day. You never know what you're going to get. But you've got that home game before, a really tough one on the road at Iowa State. But there's some opportunity here to put themselves in a really good position to be maybe on that 4, 5, 6 seed line, and in position to do something really, really special in March. And it's because of all the things that you've said and we've talked about tonight. They have, this is the most complete team I've seen at TCU probably
Hmm.
ever.
Yeah,
And there, while there isn't a night in, night out star to this point, it seems like every night at least one guy has stepped up and kind of worn that cape for the Frogs. And as long as that continues, this team could win a lot of games.
they really could. And I want to add just one more thing because I think one of the things that I've been impressed with about this team is that their mistakes don't compound typically.
Mm-hmm.
Now
Mm-hmm.
you have instances where like the first 10 minutes of the Iowa State game, just
Yeah.
literally nothing was going right. People forgot how to dribble in that game. But for the most part, they are able to maintain their composure well enough that even when something goes wrong, they don't try to fix it with their play by overplaying and
Yeah.
compounding their mistakes. Two instances from the game on Tuesday night. Fast break opportunity in the second half. Frogs are up by like 6. Trey Tennyson takes a pretty ill-advised off-balance 3, kind of falling over the 3-point line, misses it. Dixon was furious. Next possession down, nobody rushes, nobody tries to do anything crazy. Tennyson has the ball in his hands 2 times on that possession, passes it each time, makes the right decision before ball inside to Jameer Nelson on an offensive rebound, gets kicked back out to Tennyson. He hits a 3, right? Nobody compounded their mistakes. The next, a couple times down after that, Jameer Nelson misses a free throw. What happens on the rebound? Texas Tech gets the rebound. Joe Toussaint isn't looking up. Jameer Nelson recognizes that, gets in front of him, draws the charge as he's running. He doesn't even get to half court before Nelson's in front of him, set, and draws the charge. A heady play, didn't try to do too much, recognized the situation. That all stems from Jamie Dixon. That level of composure. And it goes back to the foul that happened in the last minute of the game against Kansas when everybody in TCU fandom was losing their mind and they were actively and publicly begging Jamie Dixon to get fined, to blow up the Big 12 refs, to do what Jerome Tang has been doing this week for Kansas State and criticize refs by name, which is not going to end well for him, by the way.
No.
And it's not setting a good example for his players, by the way,
And
to
they're
be
bad.
that
So
petty
shut up.
when you're not
Yeah.
that great. And yes, they've had some extenuating circumstances happen, but still, maybe zip it. Instead, what did Dixon do? All he talked about after the Kansas game was rebounding.
Yeah.
We gave up 16 offensive rebounds. We gave up way too many second chance points to give up in a 2-point loss. We're going to control what we can control. And TCU came out the next week and beat 2 top 10 teams. His composure, his willingness to stay focused and to move on from things that you can't control, I think is impacting this team's composure in a positive way.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that maybe we haven't seen in past iterations of TCU basketball because Dixon has, in the past, gotten after officials a little too much, lost his composure in the middle of games a little too much. We're seeing a different Jamie Dixon this year, and I think that's why we're seeing a different TCU basketball this year.
Well, and it helps too that the median age of the roster is like 27 because
It's
Chuck's
true.
out there at 41.
They're all eating Jello together.
All eating Jello together at 4:30. Before we kind of button up, or as we button up our basketball talk, move on to our Twitter question. 5-3 in conference, 10 games
Yes.
left. 5 of those games at home. TCU has never finished with a winning record in the Big 12. Barring a meltdown, it's right there on the table. 5-5. What's your record prediction for the last 10 games of the season, the regular season?
There are 10 games.
10 games left.
Can I
5
cheat
at
and look
home,
at the
5 on the road.
schedule?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'll read
Okay.
them off. I'll read them off to you. Okay?
I've got it right here. But yeah, read them off
yeah.
for the folks
Yeah.
who are listening.
So Saturday versus Texas at home. You go to Iowa State, then you got West Virginia at home. Back-to-back Saturday, Tuesday, tight turnaround at Kansas State, at Texas Tech. Cincinnati at home, Baylor at home. Tough stretch at BYU, at West Virginia. Close it out, UCF at home.
I think 6-4 is kind of where I went in my head.
Okay.
there, maybe 7-3.
6-4 would put TCU at 11-7.
Mm-hmm.
Probably good enough to finish in the top 4 in the conference, I would guess.
Probably.
This year, it's probably that. Because, yeah, I mean, that's probably because I'm going to pull up the Big 12 standings here. 6-4 would, like, right now, the top of the standing, Kansas State is still at the top of the conference standings. But they're really just now starting to get into, I think, the meat of their schedule. They're at 9 and that cannot be right. Oh, that's women's basketball.
That's women's
There's
basketball.
Absolutely no way.
Houston 6-2, and then there are 4 or 5 win teams below them.
Yes, yeah. So if we look at losses here, everybody has at least 2, I think. Losses. Yeah, everybody has at least 2 losses in the conference. And so you've got to assume by the time everything's done, everyone's probably going to have at least 4, maybe very well 5 would be my guess. I bet nobody finishes with less than 4 losses in this conference, and I would not be surprised if no one has less than 5.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, Houston might be the only one because they finally feel like they've gotten their sea legs.
Yeah.
But hey, TCU's already got that one under their belt. So shout out to the Frogs. Okay. Texas at home, I think, is a win. At Iowa State, 1-1. West Virginia here, 2-1. At Kansas State, 3-1. At Texas Tech, 3-2. Mm-hmm. Cincinnati here, 4-2. This is where it gets really tricky.
Yeah, this is a toss-up. Baylor at home is a toss-up, right?
Baylor here, I think TCU takes it.
Ooh, sweeping Baylor.
Yes.
Be huge.
At BYU, I think BYU takes that.
Yeah.
So that's 5-3. West Virginia, TCU has never won in Morgantown.
Never won in Morgantown.
And this game is at West Virginia. So this is where you think, okay, do they finally get over that hump against a West Virginia team that hasn't been good this year, but is getting better now that they're getting guys back? Or is it still another loss? I'm going to say that one's maybe a loss. So they're 5-4 right now. And then UCF at home to finish out the regular season, 6-4. That's how I got there.
I'd be ecstatic at 6-4 out of this last 10. I don't even care where the 6 come from, right? But
it could be 4-6. It could be 3-7. We have no way of knowing.
You have no way. Yeah. I mean, to me, this season is unequivocally a success if TCU finishes above 500 in Big 12 play. This conference is so stacked and so evenly matched. I mean, like that, we just are not seeing a ton of blowouts this year. Everybody is capable of bringing it on any given night. So I'd be very, very happy with 6-4 down the stretch. I'd be fine with 5-5, 7-3, and we're talking about maybe being a 2 or 3 seed going to the Big 12 tournament, which potentially makes TCU a top 5 seed in March, and that would be unimaginable.
You know who is seeing a lot of blowouts right now? Our good friend Shahan Jayaraja, who just had his first
Yes, he is. Wow, that was a good one, JB. We're gonna make sure we clip that and tag Shahan on social for that one. Wow,
absolutely.
Good. That was
Hey, Melissa, let's get into our Twitter thing here. So we were having a chat in the group chat as you do,
as we do,
and the conversation came up about Mount Rushmore for TCU men's basketball. So I just threw the question out on Twitter, said, quote tweet this with your TCU men's hoops Mount Rushmore, trying to see something. What I was trying to see is your answers. So that's really that. Shout out to everyone who didn't quote tweet, but just replied to the tweet. I love your efficiency. But here are some of the main names that came up, Melissa. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compile the bulk of the names that we saw, and then we're going to have to try and figure out what our 4 would be.
Yeah. Okay.
So, obviously James Cash is on that list, right?
Yeah.
So many people listed him. So many people listed Kurt Thomas. So many people listed D-Bane. A lot of people, including Mike Miles himself, listed Mike Miles.
I love that Mike Miles put himself on the Mount Rushmore.
He hopped right into my mentions and said me. Did. That was the first one. Me, D-Bane, Kurt, and Kenrich Williams is another one.
Hard to argue.
A lot of his numbers getting retired on Saturday. Kenny Hustle, putting him on the list. And then some other ones that I was surprised weren't named more. Lee Nalen was one. Darrell Browder, leading scorer in program history, right?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Who else? Let's see.
Corey
Paul
Santee,
and shout out to Paul and who's
yeah,
a loyal poster on Horned Frog Blitz, who said Dixon, Bane Kenrich, and Kobe Bryant because it's always Mamba season.
Always Mamba season.
Shout out to him. Let's see. Who were you going to say? Santee got mentioned.
Yep. Corey Santee got mentioned. James Penny.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm reading through. There were a lot of modern guys that we love, but kind of prisoner of the moment. Like we love Trey Tennyson, but he's not on the Mount Rushmore TCU basketball yet. We love Damian Bob, but I don't know that he makes the Mount Rushmore. Did not see nearly as much Kian Anderson love as I expected us to get, which was a little bit of a bummer. You got to love that guy.
He's on my unofficial Rushmore.
Yeah, he's on
my
like
Hoopers
my
Rushmore. He
yeah.
and Alex Robinson are the two heads on my TCU Hoopers Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. But it was fun to see. I mean, I think TCU basketball doesn't necessarily have much of a history. Unfortunately, there've been a lot more down years than good. And this is a program that's never made a Sweet 16. So it was fun to kind of take that little walk through memory lane and remember that we do have some pretty elite players that have come through here. Obviously our four pros all deserve recognition, but I don't think it's as easy as just naming those guys. And I think there's some pretty good arguments to be made for some of these recent elite players.
I agree. So I think where we can start this is by crossing off any current members of the team.
Yeah.
Right? Like if your career's not over yet, I'm sorry, but you can't be on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
So no Micah Peavy, no Trey Tennyson, no Emmanuel Miller. For now. If you want to put him on next year, go for it. That leaves us with, these are all names that were listed. Aaron Curtis, Big Bad Vlad, Jamie Dixon, which I think is a really intriguing one.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah.
Lee Nalen, Darrell Browder, Corey Santee, James Penny, Damian Baugh, Kian Anderson, Alex Robinson was on there. He didn't mention himself. He mentioned the guy who he passed in assists, Corey Santee, for the all-time lead. Kenny Hustle, Mike Miles, D. Bain, Kurt Thomas, James Cash. Okay. Of those names, Melissa, who for you has to absolutely be on Mount Rushmore?
I mean, can I take well, maybe I'll start with the easiest one. I'm going James Cash.
Okay.
I think that, when you think of Mount Rushmore and that it's not necessarily the best, right? Like that's a subjective thing, but it's who lays the foundation for your program. And not only was he an unbelievable player, but unequivocally changed. I've used unequivocally twice on this podcast. What am I doing?
Nailing it.
Nailing it.
Lee nailing it.
God,
the silence is deafening. The silence is deafening.
People listen to this. I don't understand.
They've probably checked out at this point.
Anyway,
James Cash has a statue. Like he's already halfway to Rushmore.
Yeah, like that's my thing. The dude's got a statue for a reason. Put him on Mount Rushmore.
Okay. I think the one that I have to put on here is one that a lot of people left off, but it just, in my mind, doesn't make sense because he was so good in college and he's had the best NBA career of any TCU player ever. And you can debate whether or not pro status matters. I don't think that I can see it both ways. In my mind, if you have someone who is not only performing well collegiately while they're here, but also extending the brand of TCU basketball into the professional world, then you got to talk about Kurt Thomas as being the dude who was the only one who had done that in the NBA for so long at the level that he did it. I mean, he was in the league for 14 years, maybe longer than that. And so Kurt Thomas is one that I think has to be on Mount Rushmore. Melissa, that means we've got 2 spots left. Would you like me to read the names again?
Yeah, let's go one more time.
Vladimir Brodziansky,
Mm.
Desmond Bain, Mike Miles, Kenrich Williams, Aaron Curry, Jamie Dixon, Lee Nalen, Darrell Browder, Corey Santee, James Penny, Damian Baugh, Kian Anderson, Alex Robinson.
So I'm going to take the one that I want to take and leave you with the really impossible choice of making the
Here,
last
let's do
one.
this. Let's do this. Let's do this.
No,
Instead of
no,
just filling the
I
holes.
want to do it the easy way for me.
Eliminate a name.
Oh.
Eliminate 2 names.
Eliminate 2 names.
I'll read them one more time.
Okay.
Vlad, Bain, Miles, Kenny Hustle, Aaron Curry, Jamie Dixon, Lee Nalen, Darrell Browder, Corey Santee, James Penny, Damian Baugh, Kian Anderson, Alex Robinson.
I'm gonna eliminate Damian Baugh.
Okay.
And am I eliminating 2?
Yep.
Sorry, A-Rob, you got to go. Love you, man.
Oh,
all-time leader in assists, but yeah, he's got to go.
I thought he would last longer. Okay.
I did too.
I'm going to take off James Penny, and I'm going to take off Aaron Curry. Sorry, Aaron. I've been saying Aaron Curry, Aaron Curtis.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I don't know who Aaron Curry is, but I was just going with it. I think we got to get rid of...
All right, Vlad, D-Bane, Mike Miles, Kenny Hustle, Jamie Dixon, Lee Nalen, Darrell Browder, Corey Santee, Kian Anderson. Eliminate 1.
I'm going to get rid of Browder. Sorry.
The leading scorer.
I know, but
Ooh.
Very different time.
Ugh.
I know.
Okay. For context, folks, Emmanuel Miller crossed the 1,000-point threshold as a TCU player this year in his 3rd season with the team. He is 33rd all-time in scoring.
Yeah. I know. I don't feel good about it.
All right. I'm going to eliminate 1. And it's going to make everybody upset. I'm going to eliminate Vlad Brodziansky. I'm going to take him off the list.
Yeah, I think it's fair. It's tough. He's great. Love him. But yeah.
Yes. All right. So we have 5 names left for 2 spots. Okay. So we have Desmond Bain. Sorry, we have... Did you eliminate Kian Anderson?
No, I didn't want to. I know he needs to go.
Okay, so sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 names left for 2 spots. We're each going to eliminate 1 more. Desmond Bain, Mike Miles, Kenny Hustle, Jamie Dixon, Lee Nalen, Corey Santee, or Kian Anderson.
So this is where I'm going to eliminate Kian Anderson, who is on my personal probably Mount Rushmore of guys that I've watched play basketball for TCU. But it's not his fault that he played during the worst era of TCU basketball that I've ever seen. The dude was an absolute bucket. But
he was a fiend.
He was a fiend.
As I've already said, he is on my Hoopers list.
Yes.
Hoopers Rushmore.
Yeah, he's not on the TCU basketball Mount Rushmore, unfortunately, for me.
Okay. Man. I am going to eliminate Kenny Hustle.
Ooh.
That is the one I'm going to eliminate next. Here's why I'm eliminating him instead of Corey Santee. It was down to the 2 of them. I think that the style of game that Kenny Hustle played in was the front end of the very athletic 3-and-D wing, where you had centers that were relatively immobile, who were not going to be stretch defenders, who struggled with long rebounds and hustle plays. And you had a guy like Kenny Hustle coming in and just mopping the floor with some guys at the college level. He has made himself into an incredibly valuable NBA player with the skill set of 3-and-D, to the point where the Thunder were fielding trade offers for him like crazy last year. Then you look at his stats and you're like, well, he's averaging like 5 points and 3 boards a game. Why would people be trading for him? Because he's a dog. That's why. I'm eliminating him instead of Corey Santee, because I think that rebounding is a self-contained stat in a lot of ways. To be a good rebounder, you have to go and get the basketball. You got to box out. You got to do some other stuff. To be one of the best assist men in the history of a program, that is so incredibly dependent on your teammates making shots. So how good of looks are you creating for your teammates, right? And I think in order to be an incredible point guard, which TCU has seen a ton of over the years, crazy enough, one of the key things is creating opportunities for your teammates. And Corey Santee did that better than almost anybody else in the program. So that's why I'm leaving him on the list, and I'm taking off Kenny Hustle.
You're getting rid of the guy who's getting his jersey retired this weekend. I mean,
I am.
Yeah.
I don't feel good about it. I'm just saying that it's happening. So we have 5 names left for 2 spots now.
So can we all agree, or both of us agree on one of the 2 spots? Are we both in agreement that Desmond Bane goes on Mount Rushmore?
Well, I don't know. I guess we're just going to have to let the chips fall.
Oh, so we're going to keep doing this
where
the
they
elimination
may.
way.
You have the 3rd spot, Melissa. Of these 5 names, Desmond Bane, Mike Miles, Jamie Dixon, Lee Nalen, and Corey Santee, who are you putting on Mount Rushmore?
Desmond Bane. And I'm going to be, contextually, I can't tell you if he is one of the 4 best players to ever play for TCU basketball, but I can say, taking into what the game is today and how important having a highly paid, very successful all-star caliber player, who unfortunately would have been an all-star this year if he hadn't gotten hurt, guy representing TCU, makes him a pillar of this program for the foreseeable future. So I think his story, his ability, some of the wins he was a part of, taking TCU to the tournament, and just having some of those kind of all-time classic moments. I think Bane is my number 3 on the Mount Rushmore.
Okay. That leaves us with 1 spot left. Mike Miles, Jamie Dixon, Lee Nalen, and Corey Santee.
You've been aping for a guy here, casually.
I have been aping for Corey Santee.
Is it just because you want him to listen and just give you just even more connection?
I love Corey Santee. I don't need to suck up to Corey Santee.
The best.
He's such a good guy. I'm going to put Jamie Dixon on Mount Rushmore.
Whoa.
And here's why.
Okay.
It means one thing to come into a program as a player and have an impact for 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 years. I think it means something totally different to come in as a coach and resurrect a program that was, no other way about it, a bottom feeder in college basketball. TCU basketball was abysmal. TCU basketball was going nowhere. TCU basketball had been wandering in the desert for almost its entire existence, outside of a couple of years when Jamie Dixon was a player, and they managed to battle for some of the top of the standings in the Southwest Conference. For him to come back and not only resurrect a program to where we're talking about it going to the NCAA tournament for the 3rd time in a row, which would be the first time in program history that they've done that. But we're talking about a coach who came in and in the first year, 4 years removed from TCU going 0-18 in Big 12 play, in his first year, he won the NIT.
Yeah.
And people can say, oh, it's the NIT, whatever. It doesn't matter. It mattered to that team.
So much.
It mattered to kids like Brandon Parrish. It mattered to kids like a freshman Desmond Bane. It mattered to so many kids on that roster who had been through hell, not winning. TCU basketball won 6 Big 12 games before Jamie Dixon got here.
I'll have it's hanging right up next to mine.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that team.
I mean, that team.
Name some of the kids on that team.
Oh man, Jalen Fisher, Alex Robinson, Brandon Parrish, JD Miller was on this team. Kenny Hustle was on this team. Dalton Dry. I mean, come on.
Shout out to Dalton Dry. That was a roster that was actually pretty decently talented. Shout out to Trent Johnson.
RBR Shepard. Yeah.
Look, Jamie Dixon came in and in year 1 convinced those guys of something. I don't know what it was. They figured out how to play good basketball.
They believed.
And they won the NIT.
Yeah.
We're here in year 8 now, and we just talked about the possibility of TCU being as high as a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
I don't know if Jamie Dixon is ever going to win a national championship. I don't know if Jamie Dixon's ever even going to get TCU to the Sweet 16. I don't know. But what I do know is that he has had an immense and profound impact on the program itself, and that I don't know if anyone else could have done it at all.
Yeah.
We have so many instances of coaches not being able to do it. And he came in and the turnaround was almost immediate. And in every single year since, the floor has been raised and the floor has been raised and the floor has been raised. And now look at how they're recruiting, not only in high school, but they had the number 3 transfer portal class this last offseason. Jameer Nelson Sr. called Jamie Dixon the day Jameer Nelson Jr. entered the portal and said, I want my son to play for you.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That's a decade-and-a-half NBA vet who wanted his son's future in Jamie Dixon's hands. Jamie Dixon has had a profound impact on TCU basketball. I don't care what the future results are. He's on Mount Rushmore. That's my pitch.
I think if you are including his coaching career, then he's a no doubter for that 4th and final spot. Yeah, I have no arguments there. Some great players. I think it's important for us throughout the dark times and the good times to remember that TCU has not always had great teams, but they've had some really great players, and it is certainly fun to debate these points. Jamie, you know what else is fun?
What's fun?
Getting a box from Home Field Apparel in the mail. I also am wearing a Home Field shirt. Some of the softest t-shirts, hoodies, joggers, pullovers, bomber jackets, everything. Home Field Apparel has the best TCU gear and gear of your favorite colleges and universities from across the country. You are often wearing your Big Sky hoodie during recording of the Frogs Insider podcast.
I am right now.
Why would you not? I was on a retreat last week, which for me, number one, meant I got to wear free dress. And when I tell you, the kids mocked me incessantly because literally every single day was a different Home Field Apparel TCU hoodie. One kid came up to me because I was wearing a TCU Home Field Apparel hoodie, TCU joggers, and she said, "Is TCU playing today?" Like, no. She's like, "Then what's with what?" And I was like, "Why not?"
So that kid needs to fail, or at least have some in-school suspension.
We had a come to Jesus moment with her. Listen, this is a kid that's designed to be a D1 swimmer at a major university, so I really can't talk crap to her. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, you can. Fail her.
Yeah, done.
See if she keeps that scholar, right? That's all I'm saying. Talking trash about Home Field Apparel. What are we even doing here?
Not talking trash about Home Field Apparel, just really talking trash about me, which is par for the course.
That's a different story altogether. I do that
that's perfectly acceptable, yeah. We encourage you guys to check out homefieldapparel.com. Use the code FROGSIN15 to save 15% off your first purchase, 10% off of your all subsequent purchases. Frogs, FROGSIN15 to save at homefieldapparel.com. Check out TCU gear. Check out all of the other great colleges and universities. We are in college acceptance season, also college rejection season. Hopefully, you guys have some kids or some family friends or different people in your life. Maybe they're getting accepted to different colleges. I know that as my students make their decisions, I will be buying some Home Field Apparel gear as graduation gifts for some of those kids. I really wish they would stop choosing schools like Michigan. It's really upsetting to me, but also I can't really be upset when they get into good schools and decide to go there. I guess it's fine. Part of the job. You know, you got to look past your own. But hey, at TCU, I am sending you so many awesome kids this year. So many awesome. Like, I'm patting myself on the back for giving, sending a lot of awesome Trubies to Fort Worth in the fall. So get excited about that.
And buy a lot of Home Field Apparel to celebrate.
Buy a lot of Home Field Apparel to celebrate.
Melissa, I'm going to retcon a little bit.
Okay.
I'm going to call an audible here because we're at about an hour 20.
So long to listen to us talk.
We're going to get back on our normal recording schedule next week. I promise, because I won't be sick next week. I can guarantee that. Which means that we'll talk about.
Guarantee that, but please try your best because I'm
going to guarantee it.
Okay.
I will not be sick on Monday night when we record next week. And that's when we'll talk about TCU baseball kicking off practice. I want to talk about Mickey McCarty. Google that name, Mickey McCarty, between now and next episode, because I want to talk about this dude. He's a name that came up in the Mount Rushmore conversation on social media today. And we're going to dive into some other stuff as well, because there will be basketball games between now and then. Kenrich Williams is having his number retired between now and then. We're going to talk about all of it on the next episode of Frogs Insider. But for right now, make sure that wherever you get your podcasts, you go and you search Republic of Football Network, hit that subscribe button, search Frogs Insider, hit that subscribe button. Listen to every single episode. It really helps us out. And maybe share the episodes with a friend, because we're trying to be one of the biggest TCU podcasts out there. We want to be in every Frog fan's ears. And just liking the podcast and sharing it with a buddy really, really helps us out. So until next time, she is Melissa Treebwasser. I am Jamie Plunkett. Go Frogs.
Go Frogs.